My husband took his last breath with a secret buried deep inside him. For years, he forbade me from ever stepping onto that old farm. But after his death, I finally walked through its gates. And what I uncovered there changed everything I thought I knew about him. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters. Hi, my name is Emily, and I am 53 years old. When my husband passed away, I thought I knew everything about him. We had lived together for many years, shared a life of routine and comfort, and faced all ordinary struggles side by side. Yet from the first day of our marriage until the day he died, there was one subject that remained untouchable: the old farm. The farm was close to our home, but I had never been there. Whenever I asked about it, his expression would change. He would become firm and insist that I must never go there. I accepted his words because I trusted him, but inside me the question always stayed. Why was that place so important for him to keep hidden? After his funeral, when the house became quiet and I was left alone with my thoughts, the farm returned to my mind again and again. He had left no explanation, no note, and no words about it in his last days. That silence troubled me. It was not only grief I felt, but also a growing restlessness. I began to think of our life together in detail. He had never been careless or secretive in other matters. He was always open, always straightforward, yet the farm was different. It seemed as though his entire life was divided into two parts: the life he shared with me, and the life he buried in that land. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I could not continue living without understanding what had been hidden. I was not seeking wealth, nor anything extraordinary. I simply wanted to know the truth about the man I had spent my life with. That night, I made a decision. I would visit the farm. He was no longer here to stop me, and I could not let his silence remain unanswered. I knew it would not be easy, because I was walking into something he had kept locked away for decades. Still, I had to go. I went to bed with that decision set firmly in my mind. At sunrise, I would walk to the gate that had been forbidden to me all these years. I did not know what I would find, but I knew that stepping onto that land would change how I remembered my husband forever. The morning was calm when I left the house. The path to the farm was short, yet each step felt heavy. I had passed that road many times in my life but had never turned toward it. Now, for the first time, I was following it with purpose. The gate came into view. It was rusted, its paint long gone, but it still stood firmly. I pushed it open, and the sound of its creak echoed around me. My heart was beating faster than usual, but I kept walking. The land stretched wide before me. Weeds had taken over the fields, and the barns leaned with age. The farmhouse stood at the center, its windows clouded but intact. Nothing looked destroyed, only abandoned. It was as though life had once been busy here, and then suddenly stopped. I walked slowly across the yard. Tools still hung on hooks in the barn, buckets were left near the well, and even an old cart rested as if waiting to be used again. Everything looked untouched, as though someone had locked the place and never returned. When I reached the farmhouse, I placed my hand on the door. My chest felt tight, but I knew I had to enter. The door was not locked. It opened with a push, and I stepped inside. The air was filled with dust, but the rooms were not ruined. Chairs were still in their places, tables held old objects, and the walls carried photographs. It was not an empty place. It was a preserved place. Standing in that silence, I felt the weight of something important. My husband had not left this farm to decay. He had left it as it was, untouched, almost frozen in time. I understood then that the truth I was seeking was hidden not in the fields but in the rooms of this house. I walked further inside, my eyes moving from one detail to another. Each corner held something that seemed to belong to him, or to people connected to him. I realized I was about to open a door into a past he had never shared with me. I moved from room to room, noticing the same pattern everywhere. Objects were carefully placed, not scattered. Photographs lined the walls, showing men, women, and children I had never seen before. Their faces were familiar, not because I had met them, but because they carried features of my husband. Some looked like him as a boy, others resembled him as an older man. They were his family. On a table, I found letters arranged in neat piles. They were old, the ink faded, but I recognized his handwriting. I opened one carefully. My hands trembled as I read his words. He wrote about the farm, about his family, and about days filled with work and hope. At first, the words were light, but as I continued, the tone grew heavier. I discovered the truth through those letters. Many years ago, the farm had faced a disaster. A fire had broken out. The barns burned, the crops turned to ash, and worse, his mother and siblings lost their lives in the flames. My husband had survived, but survival left him with pain and guilt that never faded. Letter after letter carried the same sorrow. He wrote about leaving the farm, about his decision never to return, and about the struggle of carrying memories he could not share. He wrote about trying to live a new life, away from the shadow of that tragedy. For the first time, I understood why he had forbidden me from coming here. This place was not simply land. It was his wound, a reminder of everything he had lost. To him, bringing me here would mean opening pain he had tried to bury. He believed silence was the only way to protect both himself and me. I put the letters back carefully. My eyes moved again to the photographs, and I felt sadness for the family I had never met. They had shaped the man I loved, even though he never spoke of them. In his silence, he had carried them all his life. In that moment, I realized that the farm was more than forbidden. It was sacred to him, and he could not bear to share its weight. In the last room of the farmhouse, I found a wooden box. It was small but placed with care on a shelf. I lifted it gently and opened it. Inside, there were pieces that told the rest of the story. There was a charred fragment of wood, blackened from fire. There was a child's toy, simple and worn, but burned at the edges. And there was a locket with a photograph of a woman and 2 children. I understood at once. They were his mother, his brother, and his sister. These were the faces he had carried in his heart but never spoken of. Holding those items, I finally understood the full truth. My husband had lived his life with the burden of being the only one who survived. He had built a new home with me, but he could never let go of the memories that shaped his youth. The farm was not a place of wealth or pride to him. It was the place where his life had been broken. I closed the box and sat quietly for some time. My tears fell, but they were not only tears of sorrow. They were also tears of understanding. He had not hidden this farm out of distrust. He had hidden it out of love, trying to protect me from pain that was too great to explain. When I finally stepped outside, the land looked different to me. The fields were no longer just weeds, and the house was no longer just abandoned. They were pieces of his story, pieces of the man I had loved all my life. I walked back through the gate with a new promise. I would not let the farm fall into silence again. I would care for it, not to erase the past, but to honor it. It would stand as a memory of his family, of his sorrow, and of his strength. My husband had died keeping a secret, but now the secret was mine to carry. And in knowing it, I felt closer to him than ever before. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. What I shared today is not only about a farm or a hidden past, but also about the way love and silence can shape a life. My husband carried his pain quietly, choosing to shield me from the memories that never left him. When I finally stepped onto that land, I did not just uncover a secret, I uncovered the depth of his heart. Sometimes, the people closest to us hold stories too heavy to share, and we only discover them when it is almost too late. This story reminds us to listen, to ask, and to cherish the time we have with those we love. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe for more. I'll be sharing many such heartfelt journeys that stay with us long after the words end.